Tonight, another investigation for Nash Bridges at 10:40. Now, time for the news.
From ITN, News at 10 with Trevor McDonald.
Lawrence parents see explosive report about son's murder. More charges for shipment, now accused of 15 murders. Europe's farmers vent their anger in Brussels. Dramatic ferry rescue in the English Channel. And FIFA's ruling tonight on that Arsenal-Sheffield United replay. Good evening. The parents of the murdered black teenager Stephen Lawrence spent more than 4 hours at the Home Office today reading the full explosive report on the way police investigated the case. Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Paul Condon also saw the report today. According to leaks, it accuses the Met of institutionalised racism. Sir Paul was insisting that he had no intention of resigning. And in the Commons, the Home Secretary, Jack Straw, was defending his attempt to suppress the report ahead of its official launch. Our political editor, Michael Bronson, reports.
Stephen Lawrence's father, Neville, arriving at the Home Office to read Sir William Macpherson's report, which severely criticises the police inquiry into his son's death. It was, Jack Straw told the Commons this afternoon, to avoid any harassment of the Lawrence family ahead of the official release of the report on Wednesday that he had sought his injunction. But Mr. Straw also seemed to suggest that the leak had been a deliberate attempt ahead of that release at damaging the reputation of the Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Paul Condon, here leaving the Home Office after he'd seen the report.
As a result of the premature publication of parts of the Stephen Lawrence report, the Police Service and the Commissioner have now been subject to a wholly unfair process of speculation to which they could not and cannot properly respond.
But neither that or any other reason, said the Shadow Home Secretary, could justify a government which frequently leaked things itself trying to stop this leak.
It is the government that are the chief leakers in advance of their own announcements. Time and time again, the government have leaked their announcements in advance.
Sir Norman, a former journalist with the Times newspaper, had declared his present position as chairman of a Midlands newspaper group, something Mr. Straw unwisely picked on, as he said Sir Norman should apologise
for speaking to this House as chairman of a newspaper company, not as a member of Parliament.
That produced uproar, and incandescent Sir Norman leapt to the dispatch box, shouting directly at Mr. Straw. "You cheap little man," Sir Norman had called out, and the Speaker, after getting Mr. Straw to confirm what he said, then made the Home Secretary apologise.
And apologise to the auditor. Madam Speaker.
That didn't exactly reinforce the image of a cool-headed Home Secretary acting purely in the national interest over the weekend, which has been the line from number 10 all day. But the focus will now switch from the injunction to the report itself and to the implications it plainly has not just for the future of policing, but the future of race relations in this country. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Westminster.
The Metropolitan Police Commissioner Sir Paul Condon has said he thinks that if he were to go, it would polarise opinion rather than help the reform he passionately wants. But just what will the Lawrence and Cowley reports say about racism in the police, and can Sir Paul survive? ITN Shui Ghosh reports.
Sir Paul Condon has endured dozens of calls for his resignation, not least from the Lawrence family. The leaked report says his force is riven by pernicious and institutionalised racism, a fact he denied at the judicial inquiry. Stephen Lawrence was stabbed in Eltham in 1993, just a few weeks after Sir Paul was appointed. The report says if he doesn't accept the criticism levelled at him, he should leave. But today, Sir Paul confirmed to reporters he wouldn't resign, and he's backed by senior officers.
Sir Paul has been one of the primary movers in eradicating racism and corruption within the Metropolitan Police Service, and has served as an example to other chief officers. It would be a very sad irony if he were forced to go.
The report was delivered to the Home Office last week, after a 7-month inquiry into why police failed to bring Stephen's killers to justice. During the hearings, a catalogue of incompetence and racism was revealed. Leaked details of the Lawrence report suggest a series of recommendations will be made, including a change in the law so defendants can be tried twice for the same offence if there's new evidence. Racist language to be made a criminal offence. The Race Relations Act to be extended to include police forces, which currently have some exemptions, and for changes to the national curriculum to improve race awareness in schools. The last public inquiry into Britain's policing was carried out by Lord Scarman after the Brixton riots. Today's residents are openly sceptical about the promised changes.
That's going to take years. Years and years. So honestly can't see no apparent quick changes. Probably be with grandkids today, if at all.
Everybody, including the community and the police, have to work together. So I don't think it's just one part.
The Commissioner's harshest critics say he must still resign because his authority has been undermined. Sir Paul's position will be made clearer with the publication of the full report on Wednesday. Shooty Goat News at 10, Scotland Yard.
We'll have a special report on what's being done to combat racism in the police later in the programme. Harold Shipman, the family doctor accused of killing 8 of his women patients, appeared in court today charged with 7 more murders. His alleged victims were again all women aged between 57 and 81. ITN's Colin Baker reports.
Near the slopes of the southern Pennines lies the small town of Hyde, the focal point of the biggest ever suspicious death inquiry ever undertaken by Greater Manchester Police. Here lived and died the alleged murder victims of local general practitioner Dr. Harold Shipman, seen here being taken to court at an earlier hearing, today making the same journey from the remand cells to face 7 new charges. He was already facing 8 charges of murder. Dr. Shipman single-handedly ran this surgery in the centre of Hyde. All those named in the indictments against him were on his list of patients. The 52-year-old general practitioner, known to friends and patients as Dr. Fred Shipman, appeared here at Tameside Magistrates Court this morning when the 7 new murder charges were put to him. He was remanded in custody. Greater Manchester Police have now called a halt to the numerous exhumations carried out in cemeteries near Hyde, but the force won't say whether or not the investigation has now been concluded. Dr. Shipman will appear in court again next month. Colin Baker, News at 10, Tameside Magistrates Court.
Violence broke out today as tens of thousands of farmers demonstrated outside the EU headquarters in Brussels against plans to trim their subsidies and price guarantees. Some of the farmers, who were mostly from France and Germany, but with a handful from this country, fought with police at barricades. Our Europe correspondent Bill Neely was there.
European farmers venting their anger today against Belgian riot police. From behind their barbed wire barricades, the police soaked it up until they soaked the demonstrators. The farmers took what they could to pelt the police. Most of the rioters, young farmers, who stand to lose most when farm subsidies are slashed. Under a hail of bricks, the police fired tear gas against farmers growing ever more militant, their incomes falling, their futures threatened. Inside the circle of barricades, British and other European ministers met to begin cutting the farmers' lavish subsidies, grants that account for nearly half the EU's budget. Most of the estimated 40,000 protesters were French and German.
We are here to show that we care.
There were 30 from Britain. Britain's farmers don't share the continental hostility to farm reform. So thorough was the police cordon, Belgium was effectively sealed off. Hundreds of Italian tractors were stopped at the border, Belgian farmers forbidden from driving theirs more than 6 miles from their farms. The police had been expecting trouble. They had taken extraordinary measures to seal off the entire European Union district of Brussels.
These farmers are making their feelings clear, but most of them are likely to remain frustrated.